coffee.
Do
Oh,
so.
do you have one of these?
Thibado, Taekwon. I do not have one of those.
No.
Black belt.
This is a very honored. There was I had I think it was my fifth or sixth degree test. I had these handmade.
I've seen them. Yeah.
Um, so I think Grandmaster Lang, Grandmaster Seraph, Grandmaster Weiniger got one, and then all the people who tested at that event. So I think I had like 30 of these made.
Oh man.
And I spoke with Grandmaster Weiniger several years ago now, probably 10. He said he still has his smoothie in this mug every morning. Honored.
Yes, sir.
But
Grandmaster Thibado, thank you for taking the time this morning to
Yes, sir. Thank you.
share with us. Appreciate it.
thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, we've talked to a few people. It's nice to get this type of thing on the record, hear people's stories, and so that other people in ITF America in particular get a chance to know who some of these folks are and what their history is. And so we don't have a huge, million person following. I don't know why. I mean, ITF is so popular.
I think we're pretty good.
And we're good at this. We're we're having fun.
Yeah.
All right, sir. So if you can tell us a little bit about your Taekwondo history, like how you got involved and what your early experience was like.
Sure.
That would be a great entry into this.
Okay. So when I was in high school in Virginia, Minnesota, which is up on the Iron Range, I was a senior in high school, and I met a young man who just immigrated from Vietnam, and he was 18 years old. He was working at the Hardee's restaurant fast food restaurant that I was working at, and he had just finished serving his 2-year requirement in the Vietnamese army. And as you know, the Vietnamese War was coming to an end around that time, 76, 77, 78, like that. And my brother happened to be in the Navy in Vietnam. He was on an aircraft carrier in Saigon when they exited Saigon at the end of the war. If you remember the photos, or if you saw some, maybe
Yes, sir.
we're not alive, but if they were pushing off planes and helicopters to load on refugees. So this was before that.
Oh.
Yeah. So he went through the basic training of the ROK soldiers, which was you get your first degree black belt in your 10-week basic training, right? You go 1 gut per week, 40 hours of training per week. You get black belt as you finish your basic training, and you're sent to the front lines. This is basically General Che's design. It's in the encyclopedia. 400 hours of training.
Yeah.
And we still do that today. It takes about 2.5 to 3.5 years, depending on your training schedule now, but it's the same training, right? And that was their military basic training. So he learned Taekwondo directly from the first line development of Taekwondo. And so he became a friend, and I begged him to teach me some Taekwondo. And he's like, no, this is just for fighting, it's for killing, it's for the army. No. And I said, well, I just want to know. And so anyway, that was just my first exposure. And we had a few chances to train together, and it got me interested. And then I had a brother-in-law for my first wife who was training in ITF Taekwondo up in North Dakota. And I had a little more training there, and then I moved to Colorado right after high school. So August of 77, I moved to Leadville, Colorado, and worked at an underground hard rock mine, the Climax mine. And a couple of my buddies there were training in Taekwondo in the evenings at a place called the 6th Street Gym. And they were students of Grandmaster Seraph. And I very quickly, like about green belts, when I was a green belt there, the black belts left. They got laid off from the mine and left. So I took over the school. And I would travel once a week or twice a month to Denver to train with Grandmaster Seraph, uh, Grandmaster Burkhart, Grandmaster Weiniger, Grandmaster Lang. I would pick and choose between those schools, and I'd go down there and train with them, and I'd come back and teach my students. As a green belt, I'm an instructor.
Yeah.
Back
Wow.
then, there were not many black belts, and there Grandmaster Seraph was a sixth dan, and there were no other fourth dans. And so I got to see those guys, Lang and Weiniger and all those guys test the fourth dan. Was training with them. Got my ass kicked plenty, plenty by those guys. It was super fun, and we were pretty hardcore. We were the boys from the mountains, and when we came down, we were treated very well and very badly, beat up, and sent home with our tails between our legs. But it was great training, good lessons, good hardcore. We just loved kicking and punching, and those guys were great inspiration for me. So, gosh, I just remember it took me a few years to get my black belt. I have my resume here, so I just gonna say like 83 before I got my first degree. I was not in a big hurry to get the first degree, and took a little while at each color rank, and competed a lot in the tournaments back then were not just there was no ITF tournaments, so we went to a lot of open tournaments and uh, really had a lot of fun at those.
Right.
And
It was all point fighting back then, right, sir?
a lot of point fighting. Yeah, oh, that's pretty much all that it was. And one quick fun story: there was a guy, I think his name was Kraus. He was a big kung fu guy in Denver, and we were at the tournament, and Seraph was there, Kraus was there. Kraus he claimed to know this wave. I'll wave my arm across your chest, and you'll die 7 years from now, and nobody will know why.
Yeah.
And he told Grandmaster Seraph this, and Grandmaster Seraph says, "Take a step closer. I'll kick you in the chest, and you'll die right now, and everybody will know why."
Exactly.
So those are kind of the attitudes of the open tournaments, and
Oh,
everybody's
yeah.
pretty combative, and there's not a lot of etiquette or discipline, but it was a tough man's club. There's split lips and broken noses and cracked ribs were something that we loved back in the day.
Well, that's really interesting. To me, Master Russo and I have talked a little bit about this. This idea it is somewhat particular to the United States, but I don't necessarily think that's the case. I mean, I hear these stories, similar stories in different countries as I've traveled. Back then, we did this, and being an older person myself, I have a sense about what I used to do and how I used to train, and how it's transformed quite a bit now.
And how instructors used to instruct.
How instructors used to instruct. So you said you were teaching as a green belt, starting to take over the club. So there was a period of years there where you were the instructor of a club in Leadville as a colored belt.
Yes.
And you made the effort to travel to go and get your education with these other fellas. And they said, "Okay, here comes the mountain guys. We're gonna let them have it. Let them know." Do you think that is, now looking back on it, do you think that has made you a better martial artist?
I believe so, and I'm much more compassionate as a result of that. I think because like we're saying, I don't necessarily agree that was the best way to learn, and I wouldn't encourage people to take the path today because it's a little different, planet and community. There's lawyers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was a bad way to come up. But things change. Also, just getting older. I'll be 65 in April, and I'm, just I think as we age, we've become much more compassionate. And I was just reading over this description of Sahyong and Sasong again today. Somebody posted it on Facebook, and so to be the model for the fourth through sixth degree, so that people can emulate your actions, your movement, your technique, and then let's say like the Zen master at night. And I've been a student of Zen longer than I've been a student of Taekwondo, and so I appreciate that kind of concept that being in the moment is a key teaching responsibility for the grandmaster to not predict how a student is going to come out or see, how far they've come, but how are you doing today? How is this affecting your life today? And is it for the better? It doesn't have to be, but is it for the better?
Yes, sir. So I know that you've spent a lot of time with General Che over his lifetime, and I'd love to hear your favorite memory of spending time with General Che.
Okay.
Or favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things that pop in my mind. So one real quick, I was assigned the duty to be security for General Che at a world camp. I think it was 93 or 94. And so me and another guy are just hanging out with him all day, taking him to lunch, taking him back to his room, the routine. So we were told like there might be assassins around.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, okay, well, I'll take the bullet.
That's right.
But somebody snapped a photo of me and General Che sitting on a picnic bench eating hot dogs. And when I got home, I showed it to a couple of my students and they just cracked up laughing, like, oh my God, here you are with the founder of Taekwondo just sitting in a picnic bench eating a hot dog. Like, that is such a surreal image, right? So anyway, that
Sure.
just
Yeah.
one really quick, right?
Yeah, it's just
So
very human.
Yeah.
Well, that's
He's
true.
total human being, really a super nice guy. So probably my favorite experience was I was in Jamaica at an IIC, and Charles Gamal was there.
I was there. I remember.
Yeah. And I have been playing Go. It's a Japanese game or Oriental game that only or thousands of years ago military generals played to study strategy. And so I learned to play Go when I was a white belt in Taekwondo. Some Zen guy taught me how to play Go, and we played all the time, and I became a fairly good Go player. And General Che plays Go, and he's quite skilled. So it's like a 7th Dan Go player, which is really high ranking. So I asked General Che, I have a Go board with me. Can I come to your room and play a game of Go? And he's like very dismissive. Like, no. He says, after the seminar, he says, Thibado, you bring your Go board into my room. Yeah. So I go to his room and he's there with his son, and I set up the Go board and we're playing. He goes, you play my son first. Because Choji won't play. So it could take 2 hours to play a game, but you can tell in the first 10 minutes like how it's going. And I was winning. And General Che shamed his son, like, ew, dumb, you let this round-eyed beat you. He really gave him a hard time. It was just really funny. This is okay, now you and me.
Okay.
And so we cleared the board, we restarted. Within about 6 moves, I noticed he just was kicking my ass, like solid ass kicking. But he told me a couple of things during that play, the board is 19 by 19 squares, the black and white stones, and the lesser player plays black and the advanced player uses white, and you alternate, right? And so you can play anywhere on the board. And where I chose to play, where I chose to place my stones, General Che said, good respect, because it was honoring that he was the better player, and where I chose to play was not aggressive nor too wimpy or defensive. Like a couple of compliments like that, and then a good sound ass whooping. And so
Yeah. Yeah,
and
interesting.
that was really like, who in the world gets to play Go with a military Oriental military general?
Yeah.
It's pretty mind blowing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
So,
You had
reflect on it often.
the you had enough ego to ask,
Yeah.
and comfort to
Mhm.
ask. And then he was dismissed. Oh, no. And then, but he thought about it.
Mhm.
And he thought,
Yeah.
okay, he thinks he wants to play. Well, first, let's see how you get through my son.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, to be the son of the founder.
Mm.
What a difficult place to be.
Oh, yeah. And I heard many stories from him too about that as well. So yeah.
And I didn't have those types of conversations with General Che. I had a few interactions with General Che, but I did have a chance to have some pretty good conversations with Che Jung-hwa,
Mhm.
and very, very, very really actually very friendly, very
Yes.
open and humble person as well.
Mhm.
So great story.
Yeah. Yeah. One more brief one, because it's so
Sure.
much fun.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that, too much ego. Yes, I have too much ego. So I went to General Che in the stands at the World Championships, and I said, "Sir, I practice calligraphy. I do Old English calligraphy. And so does Grandmaster Seraph." And I said, "Sir, you are a master calligrapher. And I wonder if there's something about calligraphy and martial arts that, are connected." And he chuckled at me. He says, I showed him some calligraphy, and he goes, "That's not calligraphy."
Uh-huh.
And so he showed me a couple of symbols, Chinese symbols, and he said, "Here's the difference. There's a symbol that looks like an upside down Y. Looks like this." He said, when a child learns this symbol, it means humanity, to be a human." He said, "Sometimes you have to lean on somebody, and sometimes you have to hold somebody up. And this is what it means to be human." So you learn philosophy, compassion, psychology from the time you learn to make a brushstroke. And this is the difference between Chinese calligraphy and printing words
Right.
in English. So very profound, made a huge impact in my life.
Mm.
And I use that story a lot in my other teaching, Enneagram, and other teaching that I do around the world. So great stuff.
It is, yeah. I want to take us back to USTF days again. Your impression of what went wrong. This, not if you don't feel comfortable, it's fine.
Yeah, no, great question.
We had a situation. We had regional directors. We had a very large group. People follow Grandmaster Seraph. It was a martial arts organization, not really a sports organization. Martial arts organization. What went wrong? Because we had to dissipate all of that, and now we're starting to come back together with ITF America. But I hear your perspective.
Okay. Yeah. Great question. So I was very dedicated to Grandmaster Seraph. He and Grandmaster Weiniger they taught that you have to be loyal. Loyalty was a really big deal. And so from my perspective now, I would say loyalty has to be a two-way street. But so when General Che died, I was a sixth then, and I was ready to test for seventh. My time was nearly in, and I called Grandmaster Seraph, and I said, "Listen, I want a ITF certificate, General Che certificate for my seventh dan." Like, I was asking, like, what are we doing? What's going on? And at the drop of a dime, he said, if that's what you want, you're out. Go ahead. You're out. You're out of my life. I catch you. Like, you're done. And I spent the previous 20 years as like Region 9 director. I brought thousands of people to the USTF. I collected money I was doing testings for color belts and sending them money. I was like buying certificates and promoting and, tournaments, tournament circuit, all proceeds going to. I tested 1,000 people for black belt in the Region 9 or Region 10 area. That there more stories, but they were all kind of not with the organization. I brought them into the organization so they get ITF certificates, and I did all those testings, and I brought those guys on many trips doing all of that. And
sir, and we had great competitions at Gainesville. That was where that was. It was like
and there was people from Arkansas, Mississippi, Kentucky, Louisiana.
What was that guy named? Jimbo Ferguson?
Yeah.
Remember him.
Yeah, he's not doing Taekwondo, but we're still close friends. And,
good.
And so, anyway, that was a fun time in my life, but I've always had another job. This was just my pastime and my passion. And I spent a lot of time, energy, and money, and just to be booted to the curb like that really broke my heart.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I don't understand. I try to understand the perspective. There's a thought that, well, first of all, there's loyalty. You have to be loyal. The fact that you're giving me your perspective, which is what I take your comment to be. I wanted to get a certificate. If General Che is gone, what ITF are we part of? Are we affiliated with anyone? What's going on? I want to know, because I'd like to maintain international certification process,
continuity,
for my students, for myself, and the response to that is, why are you questioning me? In fact, I'm offended by your question, and you're done. I mean, it seems almost, it almost seems like there was something else going on that's troubling, and people are saying things, and then you get fed, you hear lots of things, and then you start to make assumptions, as opposed to taking someone's direct conversation for word. And I don't know why. I don't know why. There's something about.
There was quite a bit of that going on. Grandmaster Thibado was a perfect example, but they were doing that to a lot of people at that time.
Yeah.
And there was lots of people were getting expelled from USD.
I don't know.
I wonder why as well, but I don't know if it's their own self-preservation, or if it's fear and desire are main drivers. I don't know which side of the spectrum it was.
I know, because if we are motivated by love, it's a different perspective, and if we're motivated by fear, it drives us to do things that cut off our nose despite our face.
Yeah,
I think that's where we were at, because you can see the result of these actions. General Che, I mean, unfortunately, General Che did similar things. He did it to his own son. He did things, on a maybe an emotional or whatever reason. He felt like he was being slighted, or felt like, you were disloyal, this type of thing, and now you're no longer the original Taekwondo. Go on. I know you've 20 years of dedicated life, and you've brought, thousands and thousands of dollars to this organization, but that thing that you did is wrong, and you're out. And sometimes maybe people did make mistakes, but it's kind of it is a legacy, a bit of a legacy.
And I'm not blameless. I made mistakes. There were, struggles getting people to pay for certificates and passing money and getting this and that, but I have no debts or regrets, that. But that's life, and I'm even scored. My score's even.
That's good. That's good.
Yes, sir. And this is because you and I have known each other for such a long time, Grandmaster Thibado, I kind of know a little bit of where your mind's at sometimes. What do you think is missing from Taekwondo in general as it's being taught?
As it's being
Uh,
taught now, just I didn't quite hear, as it's being taught now, right?
As it's being taught now. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
What's missing?
Uh-huh.
uh, I really, I have an opportunity now and then to sit in on someone's class. It's rare, but I think I think that that should happen a little bit more. That some of the seventh, eighth, ninth bands should get together and stand in each other's class and instruction, and then get an opportunity to have some discussion after, like, why did you say it this way? Why are you teaching like that? What makes this important for you? And why are you pretending those details above others? Right. So I just think I'm just curious about that. And I would really like to know why and what. So many of even yourselves are very detail oriented and specific about questions and, you know, technical advice and coaching and, you know, all those things. And I think that your motivation is mostly because you want your students to be the best they can be, right? And you want them to win, and you want them to be healthy and squared up. I don't know, sometimes when I'm in a class, I'm curious why someone is spending so much time on certain things. Or here's a thing that sticks in my craw. We have a student asking, like, sir, is it here or here? Is it like this or like that? And when people ask General Che those questions, he would look at their feet and go, correct your stance. You know, you go right to the foundation and the basic. Like, you don't qualify to ask this question. You know, there's so many other things we have to correct before you get there. Yeah. Acceleration, sine wave. Look at the training secrets. Like, let's go back there to the foundation as you're teaching. Just go back there. Don't, like, green belts asking me, like, you know, how high should my hook kick be and what angle should it be at, and like this, that. Oh, let me see your hook kick. Oh, your foot's in the wrong position. There's a there. I'm grateful of the question, but you give the Oriental answer. It's not direct. It's like you have to come a long way before you would qualify for me to give you the whole answer, or the answer is too big for you to understand right now. And I don't mean to sound arrogant about that, but sometimes there's too much detail. And I could pick on Grandmaster Ackard, and I'd have a phone call with him right now about it, but he's like, no, that's wrong. It should be this angle, not that angle. It says right here, so it's that. Like, dude, come on. It's there is so much more basis for correcting movements, balance, and if it's not exactly a shoulder and a half, or if it's, look at the person's body and their style, and
Yeah.
it makes sense. Like,
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had, as you know, my original instructor, we had many discussions about these irregularities in human beings, right? We're not,
yeah,
we're not 1.5 shoulders. We are,
right.
my arms are very long, my legs are very long. It's a concept. It's not an ism.
Right.
Right. I get another word would be like, there's a kind of holistic view.
Yeah.
That we're bringing a student along a path that's a holistic view, and we can get mired down in a view that is not holistic, but is focusing on some kind of minutia, particularly in pattern. I think that's the case, particularly in pattern.
Yeah, and I think the competitive patterns even more, right? So when we're
Well,
focusing,
yeah,
Yeah.
we really dive.
because you're well, and I was thinking about this too, because I think one of the topics I'm going to have to cover in our coaching curriculum is going to be pattern, because no one else wants to do it.
Yeah.
Neither do I, but I'm going to do it. But I was thinking about, what makes you successful at pattern competition versus someone, sparring competition. I mean, there's certain things, there's a certain kind of mindset that's associated with pattern competition. And I think about Mr. Suska, from Poland, six or seven-time world champion, and the way he did pattern to win his first world championship to where he did pattern his seventh, and the fact that it changed, and the fact that they had hosted an IIC 1 month before the world championships in Poland to prepare, because they wanted to make sure they were doing every little tiny thing. There's a kind of process associated with being successful in competition pattern, but it's just like General Che. There is space within what there's gray area. Because he changed things, or he made a different perspective. So we have change happening, and then we have some people focusing on, well, when General told me back in 91 that the hand was this way, I'm a rock solid, that will never move. And then the other view is like, well, what's the block for?
Yeah.
What are you trying to block? If it's a real situation, it could be anywhere in here and it might still be effective. So that type of thing, to me, it's also bothersome to me, because when I teach, I want people to have power. I want them to feel strong. And I want them to say, this block could be used a couple different ways. In fact, you may not have your stance, you may not have your breath. You may just have the arm. You may be on your tiptoes moving backwards and you can still do a block.
Yeah.
But in the pattern, it's an ideal. So we get very
also
that,
it teaches you ergonomics. So where is my block the strongest? It's in the center of my movement. If I'm out here, it's weak. If here, it's not accelerated enough. So that teaches you ergonomics, and that is an ideal that you want to understand. Don't have your body like this and block out here. Like, move your body there where your opponent is and where the attack is coming, so that you have the most strength possible, so you can defend yourself.
Ideal.
And that's what the patterns are trying to emulate, or you're trying to focus on. So that's how I correct my students. Like, okay, so if their shoulders back too much, their arms in the right spot, but their facing is off. And then you have to have a good eye to do that. Like General Che taught us, fix the stance, fix the hip facing, and the shoulder facing, and then fix the arm. You can't just fix the arm if the stance is like General Che says, no power. He fixes your stance. And he did it over and over again.
That too, about start doing the same, starting at the ground. Yeah.
Great stuff. So I want to go to a world championship where I was an international umpire back in 90s and at Malaysia, and the world champion fighter was a guy from Canada. I can't remember his name, but I was the center referee for several of his matches, and I gave him a couple of warnings, like, hey, too much contact, or I give him 2-3 warnings, and he adjusted to just what I wanted, and he won the match. He could fight any way they want. If you let him go, he would beat the crap out of people. If you told him, hey, not so hard, he could back off. He could hear the umpire and adjust his fighting to whatever he wanted, and adjust it to whatever his opponent was. Because I saw him fight. I was a center ref for him in 3 or 4 fights or whatever. And that is a world champion. Somebody who can adjust on the spot. They're not just a fast fighter. They're not just good, but they can hear, listen, and adjust. Be aggressive or defensive or stand their ground. These are some of the things that I wrote in my book that I published. It's an idea of first recognizing what kind of a person you are. Are you an assertive, aggressive, or do you fight backing away and hold your ground? And with the people that I trained that went to world championships, that's what we do. Like, you don't just work on their assets, what they're good at. You try to round out the fighter so they can be aggressive, defensive, and stand their ground. Three different ways, different mindsets. They don't always uh, show up, and it may be more difficult to work on their lesser concerns, but that was what I recognized in that world-class fighter and what I tried to develop in my students who are at that world-class level.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that is a question. One of the questions I had as I was riding my bike, I was thinking, we've had this conversation, Master Fruitstone and I, about competition. There's a lot of lessons that you are learned that are learned in competition. And there are some folks in the United States, for example, who don't necessarily think competition is, they think it's a step away, or it's a very minor part of the martial art journey. And we kind of have the position as coaches and whatnot, and competitors, that that's not the case, and that they're connected and fluid, and they're part of the whole system. And we learn many, many valuable martial art lessons through competition. But I wanted to ask you if you felt competition helps or hurts our martial art training, and competition, like sport specific stuff, the way we have the World Cups and ITF World Championships now, our tournaments that we have locally, because you were kind of brought up in that tournament circuit early too. I'm curious what your perspective is on competition as it relates to martial arts.
And the value, basically the
value or no value. Is there value? Seems that I'm curious what your perspective is on it.
So, I'm a big pedagogy kind of guy, so it's not so important for me right now. Certainly not.
Right.
Okay. But in my development, it was I think it was very important. And Master Arnold. So we were red belts at the same time at Master Lang at the time, or Mr. Lang at the time, at CU. And so when I go down to CU with the Mountain Boys, Mr. Lang would always pin us together just to watch us scrap. And he was always bigger than me, big dude, and I fought like hard. And he was a hard hitter, and we fought like death matches. We got out there Saturday.
You're testing each other. You're seeing, you have especially with the size, because he is a big fella.
Right. And Mr. Lang would say, "Is that all you got? Come on, you guys! Like, I want to see some blood. Come on." And so that was very important developmentally for me. That competition, and then tournaments as well. But there was competition in the class situations.
Yeah, in the dojo. Yeah.
And then I fought a lot of open tournaments then, and I was never a world champion or I won a few tournaments, but it's not my my legacy. But I really enjoyed it, and then I fought full contact for a few years in the PKA circuit back in the day before it was ISK. I fought 2 professional bouts, and I won one and I lost one, and I learned some really good lessons. One lesson was that I don't want to fight full contact. It hurts. And I learned a lot of good skills. I learned perseverance. I learned, get clocked and almost knocked out and stand on your feet and keep going.
Yeah.
Sure.
I've always had this attitude, like, even just from I was a farmer in my upbringing, and then I'm an underground hard rock miner, and now I'm a building contractor. And I tell my employees and my students, I can do anything for 8 hours. Shovel a ditch, break rock, spar, do kicks. I can do anything for 8 hours. I have the mental capacity and the heart and spirit to do that. And I learned that through, some from the upbringing that I just told you, but it served me in martial arts. Like,
Mhm.
Hard training, hard experience
mhm.
gave you that capacity.
Yeah, yeah,
Confidence
yeah.
to approach your life,
Hmm.
to surmount loss,
Hmm.
and to continue forward. I
Yeah,
mean, this is a confidence building thing, activity.
yes,
It's a self-building activity.
right. It's resilience
Yeah,
is
for
the
sure.
thing. And so I have a couple of autistic students, and this young boy was like 10 when he came, and you couldn't touch him, you couldn't put your hands on him. He would freak out, scream and holler, and I'm like, all right, settle down, come on, go in the corner, come back. And now he's a second degree black belt, ready to test for third degree. He's a functioning human being. He has a job,
Mm.
still lives with his parents, but he's like, his parents are forever grateful because without martial arts, he would have no capacity to be resilient or to manage his life. Now,
Wow.
I'm about 1,000 times more proud of that kid's accomplishments than I am of anybody that I took to worlds or junior worlds or whatever, and they're not doing Taekwondo anymore, and they still call me. I tell my black belts, you should teach this. Here, take this white belt and go teach it. Here, take this green belt and go teach it because you'll learn it 10 times better if you do that. So I'm grateful for my time teaching. I was on the Do committee for the ITF for a while. Grandmaster Tron saw something in me and asked me to be on these committees and things, and I'm super grateful for that. And I did all that and I'm pleased that I did all of those things. But it's for me. It was for my learning. It was for my understanding. Yeah. Well, it's just a place in my head where I have to kind of be with it now. But I had a plumber on my job the other day, and his boss was a black belt student of mine. His boss's father was my plumber, and now the grandson owns the business. And this guy that's working for him comes to me and goes, I got my black belt from you when I was 14. He's like 32 now. He goes, you changed my whole life. I don't know what I'd be doing if I would have got my black belt back then. And he says, I know I quit and everything, but I still think about you and I tell my kids about you. And you made a huge difference in my life. And it's just like, oh, that's so sweet. I mean, that fills me up. And again, I mean, um, there's a lot. The Buddha had these temptations, and one of them was fame, right?
Mm.
So, um, and so perhaps maybe Jesus did too. It's about something about fame, right? And so, to be an important person, to be famous, or to be acknowledged in infamy for this, and it's a devil's bidding. And so at 65 years old and grandmaster and I, you know, I've made all these, taught all these people and done all these things, and so like, there's a piece of me that goes, what's with fame? What is that? Like, I still gotta cook my dinner and, make my bed. And it's a humbling experience in life, but also how many have tasted even close to what we have, right? At our level.
Yes, sir.
Not many. I know a lot of people that who have like minimal action in their life. They haven't adventured, they haven't traveled, haven't taught, they barely exist. Uh, I shouldn't say that because they exist super well, but
They're managing just fine.
yeah,
There's been that, God.
yeah. So we just, so how do we uh, juxtapose that to like, okay, where am I at? I'm out, uh, Master Young, I'm out working on a job this morning with my tool belt on. I'm trimming out a house and I'm, giving orders. I serve people and people serve me. I'm stuck in the middle of you know, this culture that we live in, making money. I got to pay the bills and stuff like that. And it's kind of Well, I'm waxing on philosophic, but I think that that's maybe what we should do.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. Purpose.
Yeah.
Mm.
I want to just make a mention of our uh, illustrious president. Grandmaster Nunes is a good leader for keeping everybody together and doing things. And if there is the occasion for us all to be together again, it's when he pulls us together for a pattern seminar or tournament or something like that. And I appreciate his, and this is what I expressed to him often too. Like, I appreciate his leadership, his resilience to just keep on keeping on. He's had his ups and downs as well, and yeah, he's always been a friend
Yeah.
to me. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much, and I was honored to that I got to be with you two testing. Man, that was
Absolutely. That was a big deal for me.
Yes, sir, for sure. And yeah, so Grandmaster Thibado has been present at my second Dan, my third Dan, my fourth Dan, my fifth Dan, and my eighth Dan.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a whole bunch of times.
Awesome.
Yes, sir.
Have a wonderful rest of your week.
Cool. Thanks again.
Hopefully we
Thank
can
you,
all
sir.
be training again.
Yeah.
I look forward to that time.
Yeah. Love you guys very much.
Love you
You
too.
too, sir. I love you.